Hello, we're Lilith and Lara here with Coffee, Cakes, and Castles, where we will be covering the 20,000 to 25,000 castles of Germany. We'll be talking about the historical facts, myths, legends, and drama.
And today we're diving into one of Germany's most historically important and surprisingly mysterious sites. And before we continue, it's important to understand why Schloss Quedlinburg is considered one of the most significant historical sites in Germany. Because unlikely many castles, Quedlinburg was not primarily a military fortress. Its importance came from its role in the formation of the early German kingdom and the preservation of royal memory and its continuous political and cultural use over more than 1,000 years. And in the year 919, Henry the Fowler was elected king here in this castle. And this moment is widely regarded by historians as the starting point of the medieval German kingdom. And very few places in Germany can be directly linked to that foundational event, which makes this quite special. And after Henry's death, Quedlinburg became the central memorial site of the Ottonian dynasty. Henry and Queen Mathilde were buried here, and later rulers deliberately returned to this hill to strengthen their legitimate power. In the Middle Ages depended on memory, and Quedlinburg preserved that memory. And at the time, Queen Mathilde founded an abbey that was exceptional for its time. So the abscesses of Quedlinburg were imperial princes in their own right. They ruled large territories, managed wealth, and corresponded directly with emperors. So this level of authority for women was almost unmatched in medieval Europe, even Europe, not just Germany. Add to this a major center of manuscript preservation, one of the oldest Romanesque crypts in Germany, and uninterrupted use of this site across wars, religious change, and political upheaval. And Quedlinburg stands apart from nearly every other castle in the country.
In short, Schloss Quedlinburg matters not because battles were fought here, but because Germany's early identity was shaped and remembered here. And again, it's so interesting because having walked through Quedlinburg would have had no idea about the origins. And I think that that is so amazing about the authority for women in medieval Europe.
It's crazy, right? I was like, okay,
yes.
that is cool. I wasn't aware of it when we were walking through. And now it's like, okay, it shaped a lot of very fundamental things.
Yes. And just some visitor tips and orientation. So Schloss Quedlinburg is large, layered, and best explored slowly. When visiting, plan at least 3 hours for the Hilltop Ensemble. There's the Castle Museum, the Collegiate Church of St. Servatius, and the Treasury Exhibition. Tickets are usually 8 to 10 euros with discounts for families. The museum also offers combined tickets for special exhibitions, which rotate annually and often focus on medieval manuscripts, archaeological finds, or early royal history. The climb up to Schlossberg takes a few minutes but offers great views of the town's half-timbered buildings. Early mornings are quiet, the cobblestones echo, the air is cool, and the church bells carry clearly across the rooftops. And seriously, after your museum visit, get some Herzer-Baumkuchen that's nearby. It's traditional layered cake made over an open flame, and it's a nice contrast to all the stone and the history.
Quite famous around here. Yeah. So let's dive into some historical stuff. The Royal Hill Before the Kings, which we will call this part, and we will get into the lesser known early history because that's quite interesting how it went down. So the Hill of Quedlinburg was important long before Henry the Fowler. Excavations conducted between 1930s and 1990s revealed Bronze Age settlement layers on the southern slope. There were fragments of Iron Age ritual pits, so they found them there, and early Germanic post holes, likely from a pre-Christian sanctuary. So the hill was used long before. And one archaeological report identified charred animal bones arranged in a circular pattern, which suggested ritual feasts or sacrifices. So by the time Henry arrived here in the early 900s, he was stepping onto a place already seen as powerful, and the medieval chroniclers even referred to the hill as der alte Berg, the old mountain, implying long-standing significance. This matters because the symbolic environment helped establish Henry's leg- legit-
Legitimacy.
legitimacy. Oh my God.
It's like
Legitimacy.
Eichhörnchen.
Yes, really. And when he was elected king here in 919, the choices of location wasn't a coincidence. It gave him spiritual and cultural credibility.
And Henry the Fowler and the political rise of Quedlinburg. So Henry used Quedlinburg not just as a residence, but as a strategic point in the Ottoman realm. And a few lesser known details. So Quedlinburg was a part of a network of royal palaces or Volksstätten, like
Cool.
Goslar, Verla, and Magdeburg. Some early royal decrees were signed here, especially those concerning Saxon nobles. The site served as a royal assembly place for Easter courts, or Osterhofgericht,
Mhm.
where the king settled disputes and confirmed alliances. And after Henry's death in 936, his widow Matilde turned the hill into an Ottonian memorial center, a place meant to keep the royal dynasty's legitimacy anchored.
Yeah, and now we're diving into the topic we've just covered in the beginning of Queen Mathilde and the Abbey of the Noblewoman. And it's not that widespread, the information about it, but we're going to dive into the daily life. The Mathilde Foundation in 936 was a bit unusual. It was an abbey where the canonesses were from elite families, often related to dukes and counts, and these women lived in a semi-secular way, so they could hold personal wealth. They maintained private rooms and not shared dormitories. Many traveled between their family estates and the abbey, and their manuscripts show they were multilingual, so they could speak Latin, Old High German, sometimes even early Romance languages. And a rarely mentioned detail, the abbey had one of the earliest scriptoriums run partly by women, which was quite special at that time. And fragments of the manuscript copied by female scribes were found in the crypt in the 20th century.
Abbess.
The abbess wielded political authority. She oversaw lands, visited royal courts, and served as guardian of the Ottonian memory. And for a time, Quedlinburg was the intellectual backbone of the dynasty, which was quite interesting to find out because I didn't know it, and it's quite a big fact. And another surprising fact, several abbecies were directly descendant of Emperor Otto I, giving them near imperial influence, which is quite cool to know. Like,
Is all of this about Quedlinburg because we have so many major events and influences
yeah,
because you have Henry the Fowler and all of the important documents and royal decrees that were signed there. And then you have the canonesses.
yes.
um,
That word is
and
hard, but
it is. It is. Why is it so hard? I don't know. Um, but yes, it is so interesting that Quedlinburg just had like so many major events and
such an
influences.
important milestone in German history.
Yes. And even it's not just Germany, but all of Europe for some of these. Some first, yes, started.
So let's talk about some major events which took place. Quedlinburg wasn't just important because of who lived there, but because of what happened. And one of the most significant events took place in 973 during the so-called Easter Court of Emperor Otto I, which Lilis is going to talk about in a
Mhm.
second. And rulers and envoys from across Europe gathered on the Schlossberg, It was Polish princes, Bohemian rulers, Italian representatives, and nobles from across the empire. So it was not a celebration, it was diplomacy. And Otto I used Quedlinburg as a stage to demonstrate imperial authority. And the event showed that the empire extended far beyond Germany's borders.
And let's talk for a minute about Otto the First, or Otto the Great, because he is a very significant part of history. And I did remember learning about him in class, so did not remember the details. So I wanted to go over it because very important. Otto the Great was not only a unifier of Germany, but he was also a pivotal figure in shaping the Holy Roman Empire, defeating external threats like the Magyars, extending influence into Italy, and establishing the Ottonian dynasty that defined European politics for generations. Otto the First was remembered, or is remembered, as Otto the Great, or in German, Otto der Grosse, or Otto of Saxony. And again, we'll try this in German. Otto von Saxon, who reigned as king of East Franconia from 936 and as the Holy Roman Emperor from 962 until his death in 973. And he was the eldest son of Henry the Fowler and Matilda of Ringelheim. When Henry died in 936, Otto inherited both the Duchy of Saxony and the German kingship. He pursued his father's mission of unifying the German tribes into a single kingdom while consolidating royal authority at the expense of the dukes. So when we did the episode on, I believe it was Würzburg, and we talked about all of the different Germanic tribes, he is the one who kind of unified all of them. And by arranging strategic marriages and appointing relatives to key positions, Otto placed his family in control of the empire's most influential duchies, reducing the independence of nobility. He also reshaped the German church, binding its clergy to its authority and creating what historians call the Ottonian church system, a framework that stabilized German politics for centuries. And just some significant achievements and legacies. He defeated the Magyars at the Battle of Lechfeld in 955, and he ended their raids into Western Europe and secured Germany's eastern frontier. And this triumph elevated him as the protector of Christendom. He expanded into Italy, he intervened in Italian politics, and married Adelaide of Italy, and eventually was crowned the Holy Roman Emperor in Rome in 962. And so this linked German kingship with the imperial legacy of Rome. So, we've been talking about the Holy Roman Empire, and here's Otto, who has truly linked this. And the Ottonian dynasty, his reign marked the beginning of the Ottonian dynasty, which ruled for nearly a century and laid the foundations for medieval German monarchy. Otto's campaigns and diplomacy gave Germany peace and security, while his dominance made him one of the most powerful rulers in Europe and kind of unified the continent. And church reforms, by relying on bishops and abbots rather than secular nobles, Otto strengthened royal control and ensured loyalty through ecclesiastical appointments. So again, we had talked about prince bishops, and here we are. And why does Otto matter so much? Otto the Great is often considered the true founder of the Holy Roman Empire. He revived Charlemagne's vision of a Christian empire in Europe, and his military victories, dynastic strategies, and church reforms not only unified Germany, but also secured its place as a central power in medieval Europe. So Otto the First, or Otto the Great, was a very big deal in history. Yes.
Quite impressing. What he did and what influence he had, and when he was marrying this Italian woman and stuff. So really interesting.
Huge influence all across Europe. Yes.
Yep. And another major moment came later when Quedlinburg served as a ritual memory site. It was an important anniversary of Henry the Fowler, were deliberately celebrated here, reinforcing dynastic legitimacy. And even conflicts passed through Quedlinburg. During the Reformation, the abbey faced enormous pressure. While surrounding regions turned Protestant, Quedlinburg tried to preserve its special status, navigating religious change carefully to avoid dissolution. And it succeeded longer than most. And this ability to adapt politically, religiously, and socially is why Quedlinburg survived when many similar institutions just disappeared. And talking about some important people, we heard about Otto the First, Otto the Great, but we usually think about the kings and emperors and armies, and Quedlinburg challenges that picture because the women, which we talked about already, were not cloistered nuns in the usual sense. They came from the highest noble families of the empire, and the Etonians, Salians, and Stauffers. And many of them were close relatives of kings and emperors, which made them very special. And what made Quedlinburg extraordinary was its legal status.
Okay.
So the abbess was an imperial princess. That meant she ruled extensive lands, collected taxes, held courts, and answered directly to the emperor, not to a bishop. And this gave her political independence that was almost unheard of for women in medieval Europe. Some abbesses ruled for decades and became experienced administrators. They negotiated with cities, nobles, and emperors. They managed wealth, land, and people. And one fact which is little known, several abbesses never took full religious vows, which allowed them to remain politically flexible and active in court life. So Quedlinburg was not just a religious center, it was a female-led power structure embedded in imperial politics.
That is, look at the women rising up here in Quedlinburg. Yes, I love it. And so this is one of the main reasons historians consider Quedlinburg unique beyond the elite women and officials. Many people lived lives that rarely appear in records. Young girls from noble families were often sent to Quedlinburg not to become nuns, but to be educated. They learned reading, writing, music, and etiquette, preparation for life at court or in marriage. And I mean, we truly have a city that is promoting learning and knowledge. And also just talking about the servants who formed the backbone of daily life. So we had the maids who maintained the rooms, the kitchen workers preparing food for dozens, messengers moving between the abbey and the town, and some lived permanently on the hill. Others moved daily between Quedlinburg town and the abbey. So it wasn't just the nobles and the people of the abbey who were important, but we also had the servants as well who were kind of keeping things running in the background. And of course, illness, aging, and death was a part of life too at the time, and burial records suggest that many people who worked on the Schlossberg were buried nearby. One quiet truth that's often overlooked: for many who lived here, Quedlinburg was not a symbol of power, it was simply a home. It was a place where they cooked, they argued, they celebrated feast days, they mourned losses, and they aged within the walls. And while their names are mostly lost, their labor made Quedlinburg possible.
Which is really interesting about all those people who lived there. It was not like many names which we can find in history, but the big names like Otto and Henry the Fowler, this is quite big. And then all the women who were mentioned, it's really interesting.
Yes. And it is interesting too when we talk about these things because, so far we have just been talking about the big names and the kings and the nobles and the aristocrats who kind of founded these castles, and haven't talked so much about the people who kind of kept things running in the background. And moving on to the Romanesque crypt and hidden layers. And so the crypt beneath St. Servatius appears simple with low ceilings, thick pillars, dim lights, but it hides many stories and some facts that most visitors don't know. It's one of the best preserved early Romanesque crypts in Europe, with the original stucco fragments still on the walls. So, again, something else that is very unique to Quedlinburg. And the stone slabs covering Henry and Matilda's sarcophagi were not always fixed. Pilgrims sometimes lifted them slightly to touch the royal air, a practice that was recorded in 14th century notes. Um, Traces of gold dust were found on parts of the floor, likely leftovers from gilded reliquaries processed through the crypt. And oddly, the crypt's western wall doesn't align with the rest of the church, suggesting an earlier sacred structure existed before the Romanesque rebuild. One of the most intriguing discoveries in the 1930s, archaeologists found a sealed cavity behind the northern wall containing burnt wood, a bronze buckle, and a small fragment of parchment, possibly remains of a destroyed reliquary or early shrine.
Which is
I
really interesting.
It is interesting, and also I feel like maybe we shouldn't be opening up sealed areas
No,
like that.
please don't, people.
Maybe we should leave those as they are.
We want to touch the air.
Yeah, yes,
Oh
as
my
they
God.
did in the 14th century.
Yeah.
Yes, touching the royal air.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on to little known details that, will just get into the castle's history about some secrets or unusual details, which we were excited about because we were like, okay, we want to know all the like dirty little secrets and details. So first one, the pre-Christian carvings under parts of the castle, stones show spirits and sun symbols, which are characteristics of early Germanic ritual sites. So that's, yeah, quite interesting that they found them under parts of the castle. They have a hidden chamber. I think that's nothing special anymore because we always have a hidden chamber.
Yes. And people have
But
been opening them.
a radar scan in the early 2000s revealed a sealed room below the courtyard. So there's no doorway to that like hidden chamber, but they found it with the radar. So quite interesting. And its date and purpose remain unknown. Maybe someone will find out after, like in the 2000s. That's quite early. They will be thinking about what this could have been for. They have some strange acoustics. There's a staircase near the sacristy amplifiers, which sound upward. Maybe this was intentional for guards to overhear visitors approaching. We don't know, but it's there. There are falcon symbols everywhere. Like tiny falcon carvings appear in several corners. So that is maybe because of Henry the Fowler, whose symbol was the hunting bird. It would fit to the history, but still very interesting. Someone must have had a very close look to those tiny falcons. There was a lost manuscript. After World War II, several treasures were taken by an American soldier, and decades later they surfaced at an auction. A few of them still remain missing, but still interesting that they like took them and wanted to sell them afterwards. The Americans.
Don't blame us. It was one man.
Then the church organ has a dummy pipe, which was added during the Baroque era to make it appear larger and more impressive. And there was a forgotten burial. In 2004, researchers found an unknown female burial under the nave, and the DNA suggests a noble lineage. Yeah, lineage, but the identity is still unknown. So that is quite interesting about some secret facts.
It is interesting, and I have to say Quedlinburg, walking through it, it felt the town itself felt kind of mysterious, and I don't
Yes.
know. Yes, I don't know if it was, the buildings are from that time period or what it was about it, but it kind of just walking through it.
There
It was
was
a
a
little bit,
special feeling about it, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it was a little bit different than Rothenburg,
Yeah.
and that kind of very like medieval town feeling. This one, it felt mysterious, and so
I
it is.
agree. Yeah.
Yes, it really interesting to hear about all of the like secrets and rare facts about Quedlinburg.
Yep. It's really interesting.
And now talking about the castle itself through the centuries. So through the Middle Ages, the castle served as a pilgrimage center, a memorial site for Ottonian rulers, a huge landowner controlling villages across Saxony-Anhalt. And during the Reformation, the abbey became Protestant and the canonesses shifted into roles more aligned with courtly administration. And then the castle served as a ducal residence, a Prussian office, a storage site for valuable art, and at one point, a barracks during the Napoleonic Wars. Um, and things that few people know about. In the 18th century, the castle hosted scientific salons and early natural history lectures. In the 19th century, it nearly became a military academy. And during the GDR era, parts of the castle were used for quiet archival work related to medieval land surveys, which was mostly unknown to the public. So again, the castle itself holds kind of all of these like secrets and interesting facts, that aren't widely known.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And yeah, just diving into that.
Yes.
Just funny.
And I think like we've heard about Ludwig and Richard Wagner and kind of the furthering of music and opera and the arts, but with Quedlinburg, like we have history and science and um just some furthering of education, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the castle today? Today, the castle is a working research environment, as we just heard from you, Lilis. They did some stuff in the early years, but now they are really doing research there. Restorers analyze the pigments, archivists catalog charters, and historians continue to track down missing manuscripts. The Domschatz treasury holds priceless objects, which is interesting as well. In the 99th century, Samuel Gospels, a reliquary cross with Byzantine enamel. Mhm. And early Ottonian ivory carvings. Several of these items were believed lost until the 1990s, when they like tracked them down or found them at auctions and stuff. So they got them back. Still interesting how people can make the combination that it belonged into that castle. I think that is quite interesting. And nowadays, the castle also hosts conferences, and visiting scholars. So some staff members have worked there for decades. Caretakers who know every drafty hallway and every echoing stairwell. And the gardens and stuff are still, maintained, and people are still like keeping it clean and keeping it well. Yeah.
Yes. And just before we get to the end, so when we visited Quedlinburg, we were able to walk up and view the castle from the outside. I think they were doing renovations when we were there, but we
Yeah.
were still able to walk the gardens. And that was another one that you're just sitting and you're looking over the town and the
Which is
surrounding
so nice, right?
area.
The
Yes.
view you can have and overlooking the town.
The view was amazing. And that's when Jamie had mentioned, he was like, somebody sat here hundreds of years
Yeah.
ago
I
and was like, this is mine. All my land.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
so funny.
And Yes, and then also, I remember I was walking through a Target here in the US, and, I don't know if you guys have Targets in Germany, the stores,
Yeah, I
the
think
Target
so,
stores?
but not the same one.
Yeah, and I saw a game, and it was, I found it. I looked it up. It's The Quacks of Quedlinburg. So
No
there's a
way.
game. Yes. So it's a board game and it's called The Quacks of Quedlinburg, or in German, I'm going to try to say this, Die Quackselberg von Quedlinburg.
That is so cool.
Yes, and I'm trying to see what this game is actually about. Oh, okay, here we go. So every year, the city of Quedlinburg holds a festival where the greatest apothecaries and quack doctors, compete against each other over several days to prove that they are the greatest potion brewer of the land, with different ingredients being available for purchase in the markets each time. Every day, a fortune teller announces what strange occurrences will affect the competing quacksilvers that day. And it is a board game, and then you can have multiple players. But it just sounds really interesting and it's kind of cool. We were talking about all like how mysterious Quedlinburg kind of feels, and there's a whole game about it.
That is so cool.
Yes. And so just some closing thoughts. Quedlinburg isn't just an old castle, it's a place where power, faith, and knowledge intertwine. A hill used for rituals thousands of years ago became the center of a medieval kingdom. A queen transformed it into a seat of learning. Generations of women preserved manuscripts that shaped our understanding of the Middle Ages. And today, its walls still whisper history. Some of it's known, and much of it is still waiting to be uncovered.
Yeah. This was Coffee Cakes and Castles with Lilith and Lara. And most important question, is there coffee and cake at the castle? And no,
Yes.
there's not. But there are some cute cafes around, and we sat in the sun and had some coffee and some cake. But directly, you have to go down the stairs again and walk into the city center, and there you can have it. But still, very nice little town and worth a visit.
Yes, definitely worth a visit. And we are kind of coming to the end of the castles that we toured. We have a couple still coming up that we were able to tour in person, but this is a good time. If you guys have any castles that you would like to hear more about, please drop that in the comments so that we can get to researching those for you.
Gonna be
Otherwise, we
exciting.
will pick them.
Yes, we have a
So
list. We have a
we
list.
do. We have the list of castles, but if you want to hear one in particular, please let us know and we will get to that first.
Thank you guys for listening and have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
Bye.